when you're in a selling situation and you feel something come up with the client and you have that you don't know what to say. And I said, hot potato the conversation back to the client's lap by asking them a question and letting them talk. So inevitably, I got several messages in the last 2 weeks asking what are some of the questions, and I'm like, part of me is like, who cares? Like, ask them, how old they are. Like, it doesn't really matter. Ask how many kids they have. But I was thinking more about it, and I was like, when you're in that situation as an early salesperson or a young salesperson, and you get hit with that thing that stumps you, and you start to like your brain shuts down, like it stops working. And to think that you're going to try to come up with a decent question for that client right then is a bridge too far, as I was thinking about it, especially over the weekend. So those of you who have read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, or listened to Chris Voss's 2 episodes of Waste No Day, or listen to any of the Black Swan Group trainers that have been on Waste No Day, you know that they do something called mirroring. Now, mirroring, when I was in a truck and before Never Split the Difference came out, the Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, old school mirroring training would mean that if the client put their hand on their chin, right, and I'm sitting at the table with them, I would put my hand on my chin, right? It was this physical mirroring of their body language. And the Black Swan Group and the FBI training that the Never Split the Difference came from would say that doesn't actually have the effect people think it does. Occasionally, people are comforted by that, but it's not really that big a deal. When the Black Swan Group talks about mirroring, I hope I spell this correctly. They're talking about repeating the last 3 words that the client says in the form of a question. Repeating the last 3 words that right? So let me do that again. They're talking about, I was going to bring someone in role play this, but we got Tommy on today and I want to hurry up and get out of the way. So repeating the last 3 words that a client says, and you would go, that a client says? Yeah, like when the client finishes a sentence, you take those last 3 words and you repeat them, but in question form. In question form? Yes, in question form. So you raise your octave on the last word. On the last word? Yeah, not like the whole sentence, just the last word or two, you raise the volume of your voice. The volume of your voice? Yeah, like I do it like this. So whether you caught it or not, right there, I just mirrored myself 4 times. I repeated the last 3 words of my own sentences 4 times and raised the octave at the end into a question. Now, fortunately, you could start doing this with the person next to you right now. We could just take a timeout and you can grab somebody and do it with them, and you will see how freaking smooth it is. Unfortunately, especially as earlier or younger communicators, you're going to be pretty nervous about doing this. So you need to practice it. Now, my wife, Amelia, and I were at the gym here a half an hour ago, and an older lady who likes talking to my wife comes up and starts talking to us right when we're getting ready to leave. And she's talking about her knee. And she's like, I would love to do more running and stuff, but my knee. And I looked at my wife, who I was talking about this meeting with, and I said, your knee? And she said, yeah, I've got issues with my knee. And she rubs the outside of her knee. She's like, especially the outside here. And I said, the outside? And we went 8 times. 8 times. She had no idea I was doing it. And her body language went from like kind of an uncomfortable surround. Wednesday's just a nightmare at Mountainside Gym. There's people everywhere. She went from this like uncomfortable posture to just like kind of got her arm on on one of the stations and open and just having a good time flowing. And she walks away and I look at my wife and I said, did you catch how many times I mirrored her? And she
You
said,
catch
what do
how
you
many
mean?
times you married her?
Yeah, mirrored her like we were just talking about. And she said, "What do you mean?" And then we both started laughing as she realized that I probably did it 8 times straight. And she had no idea I did it. My wife and I were having this conversation before she walked up, and my wife still had no idea that she did it. And then Amelia did it to me, and I didn't even catch it. And Chris Voss talks about on Waste No Day's 100th episode when he was on, he said that his son Brandon and one of their younger employees did it to him for 10 minutes. And he wouldn't have known they were doing it except they finally just started busting out laughing and couldn't contain themselves. And they said, "We've been mirroring you for 10 minutes and you didn't know." And Chris, of course, says, "I knew the whole time." Of course he did. So try this amongst yourselves, right? Just as soon as this thing ends, well, Tommy's going to have us in a whole other place, I'm sure. But if you can remember, go watch a couple videos, check out the Chris Voss episodes of the podcast, and try to remember to mirror. Just write that word down on your notes, mirror. And then throughout your day to day, pick somebody and do it a couple times and watch how smooth it is. You don't know what's happening to you. We're so happy that somebody's finally listening to us and not waiting to respond, that we're essentially in love with this person that's just sitting there being more and more interested by the mirroring, taking us further down this funnel of our own story and our own life. Because at some level, Robert Greene in the 48 Laws of Power would say we are all narcissists. Make no mistake. We all have a little bit different percentage than other people.